And welcome everyone to the Emerging Practices for Attendance Recovery webinar. As you saw, we will be recording this webinar to share afterwards. My name is Jessica Gunderson, and I am the co-CEO of Partnership for Children and Youth. At PCY, we work to improve the quality and access to after-school and summer programs by bridging policy and practice, conducting research that reflects what's happening on the ground, building coalitions and the capacity of programs and leaders across the state to ensure we're driving lasting change. So we're very excited to be co-sponsoring this webinar today with the California AfterSchool Network and working closely with my friend and colleague, Heather Williams. So I'll turn it over to you, Heather.
Thanks, Jessica. All right. Well, great to have you all here. As Jessica said, my name is Heather Williams. I'm the Director of Policy and Outreach with the California After School Network. If you are not familiar with
Familiar
CAN,
with Can.
this is a little
This is
bit,
a little bit.
it sounds like there's some feedback. If you haven't yet muted yourself, please mute yourself. And or our host would be muting you. Thanks. All right. So just a little bit about CAN. We are one of 50 statewide networks. There's a statewide after-school network in every state in the US. And so in California, we exist to make a difference in health and well-being of children, youth, their families, and their communities by strengthening access to high-quality out-of-school time programs, and specifically including expanded learning programs, because we believe the investment in the infrastructure of expanded learning is a fantastic leverage point to support the health and well-being of our children and youth. So we are happy to be co-hosting and supporting PCY with this webinar. And so we'll go ahead and jump in. And so I'll go to the next slide. So what we'll be doing today, we have welcome introductions. We'll be getting into that in just a second. Talking a little bit about the attendance recovery and memo overview that PCY put together. And then we have a wonderful panel of pioneering districts who are going to share some of their emerging practices. We'll close out, and then the last 30 minutes, we will have an optional Q&A. So if you would like to stay and have some interactive conversation with the panelists, please do stay for the last 30 minutes. So our goals for this session, participants will deepen their understanding of the attendance recovery policy, gather practical strategies and advice from early adopters of attendance recovery, and troubleshoot key questions. We know there's a lot of questions coming up because this is a complex policy, so we want to make sure we have time for troubleshooting. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into introductions, and I'll invite you all on the next slide. This has some directions for you. So please change your Zoom name to include your name and your organization. And in just a moment, we're going to drop a link into the chat. And we're going to ask you to write one question that you're hoping to get answered today. So if I believe Vanessa will be dropping that link into the chat in just a moment. There it is. So pop open that Google Doc and we invite you to rename yourself, name, organization, and then open up the Google Doc and start adding your questions. And I see folks in there. And then once you do both of those, if you want to say hi in the chat too, we love an interactive chat. So feel free to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you are joining from. And while you all are working on that, I just want to say a little bit about, the importance of this work and this project. Attendance recovery is a really unique opportunity in California, I will say. Our field was a little surprised when it was introduced. We weren't necessarily consulted when the policy was created, but since it was announced, we have been really engaged in helping to shape what attendance recovery looks like and wanting to ensure if this is something that is part of our expanded learning programs that it's done well, that it's a high quality opportunity, and that it benefits our students. And so, at a time when our school districts, right, are challenged with budgets, there's a lot of cost pressure that our school districts are facing. We know expanded learning is a great place to support school districts to increase attendance. Even before attendance recovery even exists, we know that our students that participate in expanded learning programs, especially high quality programs, have higher rates of attendance, which means more money for the school and better academic outcomes for our students. And so attendance recovery just provides a deeper opportunity to help students recoup lost academic time, and so hopefully support their academic success. And then ideally, and you'll hear a couple stories of this, also bring some real money back into the district when districts are facing some of these cost pressures. So it's a great opportunity, and we also want to ensure it's done well, and it's something that our students actually can take advantage of. So seeing a lot of folks saying hello in the chat, and it looks like content's being populated in the Google Doc. So I think right now is a great time to bring up Katie. And so just want to introduce Katie Brackenridge from PCY. She's been around for a while. When not in a bad way, but I mean, like, Katie is a wealth of knowledge, and then I know folks haven't seen her for a while. So if you've been in the expanded learning field for a minute, you might be like, "Oh, Katie, I remember her." So we're very happy to have her back and doing some work to support expanded learning. So Katie, I will turn it over to you. And I'm seeing questions about please repost. So yes, we'll drop in the link to the Google Doc again. Katie, over to you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Heather. Great introduction. So I'm excited to be here with you guys to talk a little bit about a little bit of the nuts and bolts of attendance recovery, and then a super brief overview of the memo. We want you to hear mostly from the panelists who are actually doing this work. So we can go to the next slide. So in case you don't know, you probably do since you're on this webinar, attendance recovery is a relatively new policy from CDE, and it is intended to address the high levels of absenteeism from school. It wants to help students recover lost instructional time, and it also allows districts to recoup lost ADA dollars. Importantly, the learning that is supposed to happen in attendance recovery has to happen in the non-school hours. So there's obviously an immediate opportunity and need to coordinate with what's happening in existing expanded learning programs. So this policy is voluntary for districts, and it's also voluntary, non-compulsory for students. The classes have to be led by a certificated teacher, and the activities or content need to be aligned to grade level standards and be substantially equivalent to students' regular instructional program. Here's an important little bit to that, as defined by the LEA. So that's a super brief set of ideas that are included in this policy. But like I said, it's a very nuanced policy. And there are many details that you would need to look into more closely with CDE. This webinar is not hosted by CDE, and the memos I'm going to talk about were not created by CDE. So we are not spokespeople for CDE. Vanessa's going to put in the chat, I believe, the links to the CDE FAQ and also the link to your state system of support for expanded learning regional lead. If you have really detailed questions, a strong recommendation to reach out to those guys. Next slide. All right, so PCY has been doing a bunch of research in the field with folks who are actually implementing or planning to implement attendance recovery. So we wrote a first memo, if you can click. There we go. In August of 2025, right as the policy was starting to roll out, to understand a little better how districts were thinking about possibly implementing this policy. And those were really rich conversations with districts and also with their expanded learning partners. And then we have released a second memo, if you click, there we go, Emerging Practices for Attendance Recovery, which is mainly the focus of this webinar today. We're super lucky to have Erin with us and Omar, who've been implementing this policy and are going to give us some of their key tips. Next slide. The memo is based on interviews with 5 school districts, and then also with 2 technical assistance providers from county offices of education. And it is focused on the real world strategies and structures that these folks are putting in place in order to implement attendance recovery in a way that is supportive of students' learning needs and also engagement in school. Like Heather said, our hope is that folks will implement this attendance recovery policy well, really thinking about what's best for students and not so deeply focused on just recouping those ADA dollars. Next slide. So what's in this memo? I'm not going to talk you through it because you guys can read. So just to tantalize you a bit, and because I can see already in the question box that there are many questions that would be answered by reading this memo, it has information about how to start up a program, some key tips for that, the structure and design of the program, the content, specifically how do you provide some flexibility in the way that your attendance recovery classes or clubs are structured while also meeting the requirements around standards aligned content. It has a bunch of stuff about staffing, really good tips from your peers about how to get teachers engaged in teaching these classes, how to target students, and then I see a ton of questions in the chat about attendance tracking. We have a little bit of information about that. I think you'll get more from the panel. So that is what the memo covers. Vanessa has dropped those links into the chat, so you can grab those memos whenever you get a chance. And I am excited to turn it over to our Pioneering District panel. So let's go move on to that.
Thanks, Katie. Really excited to be facilitating this panel. Just want to start again by reiterating there's a huge demand and a real need for ideas and information sharing on this topic. You know, as mentioned, this is a brand new policy. It's never been done before, not only in California, but we believe in the nation. And a lot of it wasn't written by folks that run after school programs, right? So we are all learning alongside together to figure out how we balance meeting the goals of the policy and continue to stay centered on students. And add on to that, it's very complex and it involves multiple stakeholders and sets of rules, which is why we're so grateful to our 2 panelists who are sharing some of their journey over the last year, few months, and the lessons they learned with all of us. So I'm really excited to introduce these 2 experts who I've learned so much from over the years and who are deeply committed to the joy of expanded learning in the students they serve. So first up, I want to introduce Erin Sipes. Erin is the Director of Expanded Learning for Elk Grove Unified School District, where she leads the strategic oversight of summer programs, credit recovery, attendance recovery, and before and after school. With a career spanning over 25 years, Erin has held a lot of diverse roles, from a classroom teacher, inclusive education specialist, to a site administrator. So Erin, I would love to hear a little more background on Elk Grove to give us the context of your district.
Thanks, Jessica. Good morning, everybody. I am proud to be here representing Elk Grove Unified School District. We just moved up to be the 4th largest district in the state. Unlike a lot of our neighboring districts, we're actually growing and building new schools each year. We currently have over 63,000 students. We have a fairly diverse demographic. At last count, I believe we had 128 languages spoken within our district. It's one of the most diverse in the country as far as the number of languages that are spoken. Our expanded learning programs are currently operating at 52 sites and have about 17,000 students per day that they serve. That's not counting our intercession or summer programs. We also operate 6 student calendars, so that makes this just a little bit more complex in our world. We do currently have 62 sites that are participating in attendance recovery. For the P1 reporting, based on what we reported, we estimate that we have recouped roughly $2 million so far this year.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. And now I want to introduce our other panelist, Omar Quilleros, who currently serves as the Director of Expanded Learning for Chula Vista Elementary School District, another large school district. And throughout his career, including leadership roles in San Ysidro School District, as well as the YMCA of San Diego County, Omar is really focused on creating collaborative partnerships that provide essential wraparound supportive services for all families. We're so happy to have you, Omar. I would love to hear a little more about the background on your district.
Well, thank you, Jessica. I'm glad to be here. It's amazing that you guys were able to fit all the great work all of you have done within 14 slides so far. Um, so a little bit of our district and our city. Chula Vista is one of the largest cities in San Diego County. Chula Vista Elementary School District is the largest primary school district in the state. We have 43 school sites that we directly oversee. In total, we have 50 with the charter schools as well. In our program, our expanded learning program, which we call LEAD, which stands for Learn, Enrich, Inspire, Develop, we have roughly over 10,000 kids that participate on a weekly basis. For attendance recovery sites, we have 30 out of the 43 school sites that we offer our LEAD program at. Interesting about Chula Vista, we are kind of snug between one of the oldest city in the state, national city, and then south of us is San Ysidro, which is also part of city San Diego proper. We are a large east to west city, so we have a very diverse group of homes and families. Our primary language, besides English, is Spanish. We have a great history of also Filipino families that have contributed to the growth of Chula Vista as well. So you find that a lot of people feel that it's kind of like a big city, but it still offers a small town feel as well. So we're very happy to offer services to our neighbors.
Great. Thanks so much. And just want to thank everyone who's putting questions both in the chat and in the document. We are seeing a lot, and we're going to get to those. But first, kind of want to just zoom out. So Erin, why don't I start with you? Why did you guys choose to do attendance recovery? Like, what is the district hoping to achieve? What are your key goals?
Good question. I think the why behind it kind of comes back to what we learned post-COVID when we were bringing students back to school. So we got the ELO grant. We had a very robust summer offering the year that we were trying to transition students from distance learning back into the school system. And we had opportunities to re-engage with students in a different way. So we were still focused on learning, but it was more of like that disguised learning where it's very hands-on. Students are really actively engaged in something. And the feedback was very positive. The teachers loved it. The students loved it. And we've been looking for more opportunities to bring that back. And attendance recovery seemed like an opportunity to create that atmosphere again, where teachers can have additional time to connect with students in a different way that complements what they're doing in the regular day. So maybe that means more hands-on science experiments. Maybe it's more visual and performing arts that align with the content that they're doing in their regular classroom. So that creates a huge opportunity. So I want to say primarily it's opportunities for students and for staff because it reinvigorates them to be able to work with students in that way. But also our attendance overall has declined post-COVID. And so trying to find ways to re-engage the students and help them to want to come to school, want to be here, see the value and importance of that. And it's a huge financial drain on the district when we have students who aren't showing up. So far this year, we have over 400,000 missed days of school in our district, which equates to somewhere in the neighborhood of $29+ million of ADA left on the table. So in addition to all of the opportunities and wonderful things that we could do for students and staff, the funding that this can generate can also enforce our programs and bolster staff and do good things that feed into the regular day as well.
And it's a trend across the state, really, not just in Elk Grove, that chronic absence has continued to be significantly higher than pre-COVID numbers, though we've seen some go down. So that really applies no matter almost any district that you're in. So thanks for sharing. Omar, how did you guys come to this work? Like, what is your district really trying to achieve?
I think it goes without saying that nothing really replaces the classroom environment, right? That is the goal. And I think it's been touched about across mainly the memos and all the conversations we've had. And then so we started looking at a trajectory of what is the best practice, obviously promoting in classroom instruction, the environment, the teachers, the scaffolding of learning throughout the year. We felt that the second best would be to have an independent study plan because you can prevent an absence from occurring. And as we start to look at then opportunities to re-engage students and what this funding is intended for, we start really thinking about equity. And so the families in the areas in our city that are impacted when it comes to attendance, primarily we see that the areas that are funded higher through ELO-P are the ones that are more impacted with attendance issues. Prior to COVID, we used to promote like bring your kid if they get the yucky tummy aches on Mondays, just bring them over. We have a health clerk that can assess that. And I think post COVID, it's like if your kid has the sniffles, they stay home. And I think so that's environment's changed a little bit where people are a little bit more cautious about when to send their kids home. So taking all this into account, looking at now the different opportunities to engage students, if we have an opportunity during the post-bell time or pre-bell time, right, the expand learning opportunities times, we should then utilize this opportunity that the state has put out and create an environment where kids can recapture some of that learning loss. Again, highlighting it's not the most effective than being in the seat, right, during the school day, but if we have this opportunity, we should take this and look at it through an equity lens and focus on those school sites that have been really impacted. So we called it, well, I call it the smoothie effect or the smoothie approach. And my staff they're pretty tired of hearing this all the time. So I have 3 kids, and if I put in front of them spinach, broccoli, bananas, blueberries, and apples, they're not just going to consume them and eat them up. But as soon as I blend this up together into a smoothie, they would drink that up. So what we're doing in that school program is we're offering learning opportunities in the smoothie opportunity where we're not doing this instruction of we're doing reading now. We're blending it up. We're creating that smoothie for them, and we're making it fun. And there's a saying in that school program we say, kids do their voting with their feet.
Yes.
So it was a great opportunity for us to create a learning loss environment or to remediate that and to make it fun and engaging and create a smoothie opportunity and environment for the kids to stay and learn while the parents are at work. That's the equity lens. While the parents can't miss another day of work, while we're offering a snack and we're creating a nurturing, caring environment for them.
Thanks, Omar. And I really gravitate to what you are both saying about both schools and after schools have to function and approach learning and engaging students different than we always have, right? So how are you learning this? How are you both like building up best practices, but also finding ways of innovating and working in different ways, both with students and families? So Erin, what is one key piece of advice you'd have for people starting out, which most of us are?
One of the things that we did that I think I would recommend is we started by our pilot year by pushing into existing programs.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at our existing structure for after school, before school, intersession at our year-round schools, summer programs. Where do we already have teachers and students, and how can we tweak or enhance that to make it fit within the requirements for attendance recovery? And so that's the first thing that I would recommend. The other thing that I think is critically important is identify who your key players are and build buy-in with them. if you don't have the support of the people who are going to be doing the work or who are going to be monitoring the attendance or recruiting the students, then you're not going to get the program off the ground. So helping them to understand, I mean, we've presented it from the beginning as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to reinvest in kids, to give our staff opportunity for additional work, to connect with kids in a new and different ways, to support families in a new and different way. And so that buy-in, I think, has been critical as well.
Thanks, Erin. What about you, Omar? What's one key piece of advice, if maybe folks haven't started out yet, that you would give them as they're building this and designing this?
Wow. So first, get yourself a good stress ball. Give yourself time and allow yourself to make mistakes because I'm using a cliche, plan your work and work your plan. Um, knowing, so get really familiar with the ed code and then equate that to the pieces you need. And I think Aaron did a great job of highlighting like teachers and all those things. We need all those pieces to make this happen. So once you start drafting or putting up all the pieces you need. So for example, we have at each site a dedicated site supervisor, which we call them site leads. They're site leads for the lead program. We get that all the time. So we knew they were going to be the ones orchestrating a lot of stuff on site. So we knew we had that piece there. We knew we needed teachers. So we had to figure out how does this work with expand learning programs? We needed administrators to review the content to ensure that it was standard based. We knew we needed our community schools. I think somebody popped that up because we were equity focused and that lens of which communities and pockets needed this type of opportunity. So we needed them to reach out to those families that needed this type of service. So really you're putting everything, again, it goes back to that smoothie where you put all the ingredients out and then you start planning that out and then you start creating a committee with your district of all those pockets that have that lens and have that wisdom. So what we do is then create a committee and we started to outline with the specific goal at the end. And they all started to chime in and share what they knew. And so, I mean, it took a little bit of a process, and somebody has to be the facilitator to continue to move this forward. But if you have time, take that time to plan that out. But if you're rushing to get something together, you can make some mistakes, but so give yourself that opportunity. So before you turn that key and ready to go, make sure you review your steps and your process and your progress. Have somebody review that for you with the outside perspective, and before you start to implement and run these things. Another key component I would highlight is how you're tracking this information. Again, that was one of the
Come
key.
up a lot, yes.
Yeah. So right now we don't have a one-stop shop for that. So we utilize, again, our IT department was part of this review. We utilized what we had and we came up with the concept of how to start tracking this information. Is it the best? Is it the smoothest? No, but for now is what we have. So not everything's going to be perfect. But so again, give yourself that time, be patient with yourself, be that champion for it, and keep your eye on the goal.
Thanks. And I'm going to actually want to have the same question to Erin around tracking and data because it's come up so much. So can you tell us kind of how Elk Grove's approaching it, kind of what was some of that troubleshooting?
Sure. One of the biggest challenge that we've had, so we are using our student information system. I'll start there. But it's not made for that.
Yep.
So we had to get creative with how we are recording that information. And like Omar, we're partnering with our tech department. They have to be a partner in this work. But one of the challenges is the way that the student information system is set up. Ideally, you would have a class assigned to a teacher, and then that teacher would take attendance. But in the world of attendance recovery, teachers could be pulling different students on different days. We don't necessarily know which students are going to participate or which students are going to be drawn to which offering. Like that could vary. And so we have a system. I would agree with Omar. Ours is a little clunkier than I would like as well. But we have a system where teachers are recording their attendance. That's a tenet of the what Ed Code requires. So they are recording their attendance in a Google Sheet, and then we have empowered our office technicians to transfer that attendance into the Synergy or into the student information system. And so it ends up being a two-step process. The other thing that we've done that has been really effective is one of the main requirements for attendance recovery is that the work is standards aligned. And so we didn't want to, you can imagine, we've served over 36,000 days so far. I don't want 36,000 lesson plans that I'm trying to monitor and keep for audit purposes. So we created a Google form that teachers complete each time that they offer a session, and they're marking the standards that were taught, and they're indicating if they were using the district adopted curriculum, an approved supplemental curriculum, or teacher created materials. And so we have a record for every session of what standards were being taught, how many students attended, who the teacher was, and what the materials were that were used. So I'm hopeful that that will be able to satisfy future audits, but that's been a challenge too, to try to keep track of all of that information.
And Erin, is that the main challenge you would really flag for the audience, or was there another one you wanted to add?
One of the biggest cautionary pieces I would say is the messaging on this. Obviously, we need to be transparent. Families need to know why their student is participating, and they need to choose to participate. It can be non-compulsory.
Yep.
That is understood. But we've had parents who've heard about attendance recovery and then called us and said, oh, I just want to make sure my student has enough days banked so that we can go take our Disney trip, or something to that effect. So the messaging has to be very clear that this doesn't replace the regular day. Omar already said it. There's no replacement for regular day. That's the most important place for students to be. This is an opportunity for when life happens and the student can't be there, for us to try to recover some of that learning loss. But it's not a one-to-one replacement. You should have planned to be out. And then also, there has to be a back-end monitoring on that, everything that we just talked about for follow-through from the staff. Did they complete their standards form? Did they take the attendance? I mean, we know that we have teachers who sometimes forget to take attendance during the regular day. There has to be some sort of system of checks and balances to make sure that everybody's doing their part. And because this is a new program, there wasn't necessarily staff assigned to that work. So kind of identifying those players of, again, back to getting everybody on board and helping to build the buy-in. We need to not only get the buy-in and the interest from the staff on the sites, but we also have to have the accountability behind the scenes, because there's a point at which, if you don't have enough students to be fiscally responsible, if I'm paying a teacher and they're only working with one student, then it's going to cost us more money than it will bring in. Yeah. And so there's that piece too. So there's that accountability and kind of back end work that also has to happen.
And I'm glad you flagged, and I think it's been flagged other times, is the unintended consequences of some of these policies and regulations. One, they weren't written by folks that run program, but two, they're well-intentioned, right? Like the non-punitive, non-compulsory, and they can manifest in different ways. So I would just say to the whole audience, noting and bringing attention to some of the unintended consequences of the current regs is going to be really important. Since this is year one, we still have an opportunity to provide feedback to the state, to the department, and to others to how to make this policy best meet the needs of students and the goals of the program. So thanks for flagging that. Omar, was there another challenge or kind of thing that people should really be watching out for that you wanted to mention?
There is. I kind of want to go back to also the counting with the messaging of
Yeah.
attendance recovery versus making up an absence, right? Because it still counts towards if they're accumulating towards chronic absenteeism. So it doesn't erase the absence. So that messaging is clear to our families. Like you're making up a day, but you're not making up a specific date. So that still accumulates towards possibly being chronically absent. Um, and so a lot of this wording, that's where it becomes really challenging too, because Omar no speak teacher. So I didn't come up as a teacher. I come out from the outside world. So like even crosswalking terminologies, like offering attendance recovery on Saturday, and then you look at Saturday school. Those are two different things, right? A Saturday school is making up a specific date. Um, when asking our teachers, hey, I need your plan for the week. And so for teachers, that is a lesson plan, which encompasses a whole lot of work. And it's very different than just give me a plan where you're going to do this week for each day and then highlight the standard. So for someone like professionals like teachers, that encompasses a lot of work that they need to submit. So they're envisioning that they need to submit a lot more than what we're asking for. So crosswalking that terminology and then looking like being considerate of that as well. That's something I learned as far as what I'm communicating, how I'm communicating, and to be very specific with that. Um, One for all the districts to in California, we ran into a little snag as far as does it count towards teachers' time and service? So what that means is, are we going to put funding into STIRS? And and initially, we sent this out, or our payroll did. Payroll was part of our committee.
Yep.
Uh, there was a group that felt that it does count towards their time of service, so we have to pay towards STIRS. And if you don't do that from the beginning, you have to move funding from like PARS retirement to STIRS. There's a heavy fine, and it's heavily fined. So you have to make sure you're doing that correct from the beginning. Um, Finally, Cal STIRS determined because their hourly wage based on the agreement is doesn't change or based on their time and service, that it doesn't count towards that. So we don't have to we don't put the retirement funds into STIRS. It still goes into a different account. Little things like that
Yeah.
can be like hundreds of thousands of dollars of a mistake unintentionally because you're moving along with good intentions and you think you're planning it well, but cross-referencing these little things can save you a ton of money while still rolling out a very high quality program as well. Um, so again, just measure twice, cut once. That's my suggestion. Have others look at it. If you're not 100% sure, ask multiple people. Again, we had two different opinions when it came to teacher retirement and very different opinions, but we're glad that we're able to get feedback from CalSTRS and when it came to that. So that's my advice, and I think that was one of the one thing that took a long time to get feedback on. So it kind of held our project for a long time.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think that the nuance and how like all this stuff is interrelated is really important for folks to understand. I'm gonna in the next few minutes, I'm gonna jump to our audience questions, but just kind of one more is Erin, what's something you did or put in place that has been especially helpful? Something that you haven't mentioned yet that you want to highlight?
I think that I may have mentioned this, but enlisting the support from the sites, because this can't just be a central office effort. It has to come from the teachers who are going to be working directly with students and the office staff who's going to be helping to identify and recruit students. And then, also our labor groups and buy-in from our administrators. And as Omar mentioned, there's a lot to be discussed. There's a lot of roundtable discussions about how this is going to roll out and who is going to be offered the work and all of those kinds of things. So engaging our labor groups early was really critical. And our labor groups are supportive of the program. And that is making it much easier to implement across the board. And then our sites that are having the most success with it are the ones
Mhm.
where the administrators have really gotten on board and the principal is coming to staff meetings and saying, hey, this is where we are on attendance recovery. Here's what we've accomplished so far. Is anybody else interested? Is there anyone who'd like to rotate in, and just kind of keeping the conversation alive instead of having it be something we offered at the beginning of the year and then we don't talk about anymore. You can see the difference in the numbers of the schools that have that administrator buy-in. So that is a really critical piece and very helpful as well.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Kind of all things quality after school programs leads back to the site administrator and site coordinator connection and collaboration and deep commitment to the work. Just for my own interest, since I don't work in schools, Erin, just can you give me a sense of like how long that planning process? I mean, the list that you had for all the people you had to bring to the table in different ways, like is that a month? Is that 4 months?
For a district our size, it was several months and multiple conversations, but a lot of those were happening. I mean, we knew attendance recovery was coming for about a year
Yeah.
before it actually hit, but we didn't have guidance from the state. So some of those conversations started, a year ago fall, and we were saying, hey, this is something that's going to come. What are your thoughts about it? And what are your questions about it? And then we'll get back to you. So we were engaging them in the conversation early, but not really hashing through any kind of details or anything because we didn't have the policy yet from the Department of Education. And so then as information started trickling out, we already had built the relationship. We'd already started the conversation, so we could pick it up from there. Sometimes new information trickles out that changes the direction we were going. Like we had planned to have our counselors doing a whole lot of work with social emotional learning and supporting targeted groups. And then new information trickled out late June that it had to be a classroom K-12 teacher and it couldn't be a credential, a PPS credential that our counselors have. And so we had that all planned out and set up, and we had to pivot at the last minute because it's like, oh, wait, rules changed. Um, and so having folks involved in the conversation early and having them be part of the journey really gave us more credibility, because otherwise when we walk out and we go, oh, I changed my mind, we're doing something totally different, we would lose a lot of credibility. But since they had been part of it from the start and they were watching our journey, they were part of our journey, then when there's these little road bumps, they're a little more understanding and compassionate about those, and they help you work through it instead of getting frustrated.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. Yeah, Omar, what's something you did or put in place that has been especially helpful that you want, the group to hear?
I think I jumped the gun a little bit in my earlier comment where the think tank or the committee,
Yeah.
um, and just like Aaron, we were aware of this about a year prior before when it was first announced, and so we took the most cautious road. And so like when ELO-P came out, for example, we utilized ACEs as a guide when there wasn't a lot of guidelines around ELO-P. So we said, well, ACEs exist. It can't be any more strict than ACEs or 21st century. So utilizing those guidelines, knowing what we know, we figured the same thing with like independent study. These are the
Mhm.
things they require. So let's start modeling something around there. And if it's a little bit more lax, then we can start loosening up the harness there. But so we started to look at those opportunities, how might it work? So we started to think around that before we implemented. But the think tank really, because I don't know it all, I just pretend to. Um, the think tanks really help bring all this great information back and really able to move things around and say, hey, we should really focus on these things. And the IT part was one of the biggest ones when, again, we're talking about how do we upload information and download it? How do we scrub data? There's tens of thousands of kids.
Yeah.
Um, that's something I would have chat GPT'd right away and it probably would have got the wrong answer. But having somebody that knows how to do all that stuff on the group in the group really helped out as well. So
Thanks.
put up your think tank together, be a facilitator, be a champion for the movement if you're starting this, and be the one that keeps it forward because people do lose a little wind in their sails. Um, so if you're taking this on, I applaud you ahead of time. because you're taking on a lot, and just don't lose sight of that goal, because at the end is you're providing an opportunity for kids in certain communities to recover some of that loss, and you're providing an environment for that.
Thank you. Well, I want to jump to some questions from the audience. And the first is like, we haven't talked specifically about summer. So I'd love to hear from both of you kind of either how you're going to be approaching or how you're thinking about summer programming to support attendance recovery. What might be unique or different about that time as you guys are rolling it out and planning for it. And why don't we start with you, Erin?
We actually made one big change to our summer program this year because of attendance recovery. We have historically operated the bulk of our summer program during the month of June. And this year, the extended summer piece is going to be in July. And the main reason for that is because if we are able to bank more attendance recovery hours and days in July, we will have a better feel for where we're going next year. We'll have a pretty solid handle on, how much we've accomplished and what we have left to do, versus trying to do it at the end of the year. And of course, at the end of the year, it doesn't recoup the same amount of money. It's if it's post P2, we don't get ADA unless it is accounted to an absence that happened before P2. So that is a big change. So July, we are going to have our teachers operate the beginning of the day. Our teachers will be there roughly 4.5 hours with students. And then our ELO-P programs for TK through 6 will come in and take over to complete the 9-hour day. For our middle and high school students, we will also do a 4.5-hour offering with teachers. And that has kind of been the standard the last several years, that we had teachers run a half-day session, and then for our younger students, our ELO-P program came in and took over the afternoon. So that's not going to be different. The way we advertise it is going to be a little bit different, because we will be asking families if they want their student to participate in attendance recovery with teachers. And we also are going to have camps operating at the same time that our community partners are going to run. So if families do need care but are not are not interested in the attendance recovery portion, then we would have an option for them. Although we have found that families, the only time that they tend to opt out of attendance recovery is usually they don't understand. Usually they think, oh, well, my child hasn't been absent, they're not eligible.
Yeah.
But usually when we have a conversation with them about, your child doesn't have to have been absent, it's open to any student, and it's time with a teacher, they always want time with a teacher. So usually once they understand what the program is, they tend to opt in. But we will have an alternative if they choose to opt out.
Yeah, and it sounds like something that parents probably need to hear more than once, right? Because especially in the beginning of the year, they're getting hit with packets this big. So just like this ongoing discussion with parents and families. What about you, Amar? What are you guys thinking about for this summer that you'd want to highlight?
So we don't have our intercession as thoroughly planned out as Erin does. What we're looking to do is to incorporate it into, we offer what are called innovation stations. So
Uh-huh.
these are different stations that kids visit throughout the year, and they're led by teachers. So thinking about like teacher time, we run a quarter system. So some teachers really like their time off, and it's hard to try to convince them to stay longer sometimes, and we understand that. So through the innovation stations, we've incorporated that through our summertime, and our summer runs in June. It's a 3-week long intercession. And so we've been thinking about incorporating with those stations. We have a health station, a sound station, a hydro station, and kids learn through project-based learning. They learn about many things. So that is the way we're looking to ingrain it into our summertime, but it has not been 100% locked in yet.
Great, thanks for sharing. And you kind of spoke to this, and there was several questions. And maybe we'll start with you, Omar, and then move to Erin. Um, how is curriculum certified in your district or for attendance recovery? And have you guys come up against like who's making that decision and the level of rigor. And then Aaron, I'll turn that question over to you, which you kind of spoke to, but
Yeah, so again, we're piecemealing together the different IT access that we have. So we utilize a page called Jambula for all our activities, and we have all our instructors, not just academic, but enrichment instructors as well. They submit their proposal for an activity the quarter prior to offering it. In there, they outline and highlight the materials they need, and then their plan for the week. But if you are going to offer an attendance recovery, there's a couple extra steps, which includes the specific standard that would be highlighted. Then they break it down by weeks and how many days. And for that, they have to offer it in increments of 1 hour. So then they highlight the activities, again, their plan, not their lesson plan, but the plan for that activity in that day, the materials they need. That gets all submitted into Microsoft Forms. Then from there, our site leads are not credentialed staff.
yeah.
So they review these activities with the principal, since the principal is the credential staff that highlights and reviews these things. So they have that conversation. So it's a collaboration agreement between external learning programs and the principal. One, to see if that's an activity that the community really wants or needs and the kids want. And then when it comes to attendance recovery, they review to ensure that they are indeed meeting those requirements. Once that is approved, our site lead uploads these activities and they identify them. These are academic activities into Jumbola. And then the parents register. We have an open registration date. Then the parents log in and they register their kids to the activities. So that's pretty much our flow from one quarter to the next. And that happens every quarter.
Yeah, and I think that the choice is a big part of engaging families and students. So
Right.
how you guys are integrating that into kind of student and family choice as well
Yeah.
is really interesting to hear.
And a kid
Aaron,
can
oh,
register
sorry.
to both. Also, yeah. So they're not just locked into one activity because they run offsetting days. A child can still, or a student can still participate in soccer or robotics or crochet or storytelling and writing and still have an academic activity. So they can participate in multiple activities throughout the week for that quarter. And the next quarter, they have an opportunity to enroll into a different activity if they would like.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. And definitely, we know ELO-P resources have really added to this amount of choice and different types of options and learning and enrichment experiences for kids. Aaron, is there anything you can add on just like the credentialing, the process for approval with
Yeah,
teachers and
um,
administrators?
we have about 4 different options for our elementary staff they've gone through our district steering committee and they are supplemental. They're not offered during the regular day, so it would be new to students, but it complements our adopted curriculum. So we have those that are available if teachers don't want to do their own prep or create their own lessons. But I'm a big believer in teachers bringing their passion to kids,
Yep.
and that excitement is contagious. So I I won't tell them they have to use those 4. Like, these are here. If you want to teach and you don't want to think, here you go. But if you have something you're excited about, I want you to bring that. I want you to do that with kids. I want to make sure it's standards aligned, but I believe that our teachers have great ideas, and when they are allowed to be creative with it, and you help them with resources as far as like we have an oceanography club running at one of our schools that is doing marine science, and it's aligned with NGSS, but the kids are excited about it. There are art activities. The students made a PowerPoint presentation. There's a lot of life skills that are combined in this, but it's because a teacher is really passionate about the topic.
Yep.
And then the kids recognize that and they get excited about it as well. And so in her case, we're helping her with the materials that she needs so that she can bring her passion to students. And she's grateful for the opportunity. And it's amazing for kids and it's amazing for her. So that's just an example.
Thank you. And we're about to wrap up the first hour, and as everyone I think knows, we are going to stay on for another 30 minutes because there are some nuanced questions when it comes to attendance recovery. And so we're going to do our best to answer those. But as the moderator, I get a little leeway, and I want to end with one question because I think there's people from CDE or some state policymakers out there who are listening to this and are curious, like have a role in the implementation of this. So I'd be curious from both of you, kind of what would be one thing that is most needed? What kind of support could be offered to the field and have impact? And it could be a resource, it could be guidance, it could be taking away certain rules, but just what's one thing that the state, the Department of Education, us at a statewide level can do to better support districts in implementing this policy?
Good question. I think because I think what everybody's heard, and I think the hesitation across people that are attending today also as well is that clarity to so when you're implementing it, you feel 100% sure that you have a very strong foundation as you're rolling this out. Um, I think there's always that fear of making a mistake.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what holds back, I think, a lot of this implementation and taking that chance. So I think clarity from the beginning will help out a lot. And then kind of post that if there's some leniency towards intent, right? So if a district did was a pioneer and there are learning lessons that happen because somebody did implement it and then we learn along the way, to not penalize that ingenuity and to allow creativity to continue. But then from that first year to allow that flexibility and look at the intent um, of what's being implemented. I had a mentor used to tell me the worst thing you can do is do nothing. And and so I think that was the worst thing for us. Like the worst thing we do is do nothing because now we're not offering, we're not engaging. There's so much that has been created. Uh, Aaron highlighted the engagement of teachers, allowing them to be creative and offer their love and the activity they love the most. If we would have sat on this, I think none of that would happen. So we would have lost a lot of that magic. So
Thanks.
that would be my want.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Aaron, anything you want to add? And then we'll wrap it up for this first hour.
If I had one wish right now, it would be, can I have the FPM instrument? I want to know exactly that I'm gathering the right data that you are going to ask me for, because I know this is going to be audited. And we have the audit guide, but it's just not as specific that I just don't know exactly what items, what documentation. I saw in the chat that somebody had asked for me to share the form, and I'm like, I am happy to share any resources that I have, but I do not know that that is what they are going to be looking for yet. I just haven't seen it yet. So that it is hard, and I understand the hesitation, and I think Omar just hit the nail on the head with, like, it's hard to take the leap when you are still gathering information and FAQs are still being posted and there are still rules that are being defined as we're trying to fly this plane. So I think that would be my one wish, is like, tell me exactly what you are going to look for in FPM.
Those were very similar. So thank you both. And yeah, for those that are going to be signing off, thank you so much for joining. And Omar and Aaron, thank you so much for all your expertise. This is, to me, what learning really looks like, and learning together and across the state with each other. So I want to turn it over to Heather to kind of close us out and wrap it up.
All right. Thank you, Jessica, and big thank you to Aaron and Omar, because yes, it is oftentimes very hard to be in the pioneering district. So I appreciate that asterisk next to, like, this is what we're trying, this is what we're learning, and we can't craft more clarity until folks actually dig in and start to work on this. And so I appreciate you both for sharing. And if we go to the next slide, just want to flag a couple things and then we'll have some open dialogue. So there's more opportunities to engage and more information coming out. So in the spring, PCY will be releasing the third attendance recovery memo. And so that's more focused on the return on investment. So Aaron and Omar have talked about that a little bit, but getting more of that information from more districts. March 17th, so a little less than a month away, CAN and PCY will be co-hosting another webinar on a slightly different topic, recommendations to and from the field around the 25-26 expansion of ELO-P. So this is all those districts that were bumped from tier 2 to tier 1 because of the change in the rates. And so when you go from tier 2 to tier 1, you have to serve a lot more kids. And so highlighting some recommendations that have emerged from the field about that expansion. As we move into April, PCY will be facilitating a Boost conference workshop around attendance recovery and expanded learning. So if you are at Boost, I encourage you to check that out. And then a couple other opportunities want to flag. So as Katie mentioned at the start, right, this is not a CDE endorsed webinar. And sometimes there is a lot of like technical details and nuance. And so a great place to ask CDE questions are office hours. And so CAN co-host with CDE these office hours on Fridays throughout the year. And so the spring ones will kick off March 13th. So encourage you to sign up and join those. And you can come with your really specific question and CDE will hopefully answer it. And if they can't, then they flag it as something that they need to go back and look at how they provide more clarity. And then we also have our upcoming Spring Expanded Learning Academy. So again, this is a partnership with CAN and CDE on a number of topics. Registration just opened for that. And this spring, a lot of the topics are geared towards district leadership. So hoping to engage district leadership in understanding the opportunities that ELO-P provides. But some other updates on things like what's the latest on CalPads and PACE and all of that. So you can register for those today. So with that, again, a huge thank you to Omar and Aaron. Thank you to all of those of you who have joined us. And now we're gonna transition to the optional Q&A. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Jessica.
Thanks, Heather, and appreciate the stamina of Omar and Aaron for sticking around for some more questions. Right now, it looks like there's about 8 or 9 pages from what I can see. So we won't get through them all, but I'm gonna bring up a few, and Katie, Heather, and others can continue to highlight ones that are coming up. So the one is on community schools, which I think got mentioned, adding another layer of complexity, or maybe not, another layer of opportunity. The question was, how does attendance recovery fit with community schools and the whole child approach? Are community school coordinators in other districts involved? So are community schools coordinators or the community schools maybe lead at your district? Have they been involved in this process yet? Or maybe just at certain school sites? Yeah. And it's open to either Aaron or Omar. Just jump off mute.
Just a quick highlight. We have, I mentioned our site leads, and then we have coordinator of community schools at those selected sites, and so we've intentionally put them in the same room to start discussing the school. I think a lot of times we put up walls and look at just department services and gear our goals just by those departmental services and not look at the opportunities of cross collaboration. So in the end of it all, we are looking at the same child that when they exit our school, they're in our community and they still have the same needs. The needs don't go away when the bell rings. And so we start to cross collaborate. So part of that also intention is calling those families into these services. We've asked the principals to include our site leads in their SART and SARBs or student success team discussions, or any other services that may be needed so that they are part of that conversation because they do impact the school environment. So our community school coordinators and site leads should and are pretty involved with a lot of the other things when it comes also to supplemental services. As when it comes to attendance, a lot of the absence is an issue, obviously, but that's not causing the issue. There's other things that are happening at home. So that trauma-informed approach and understanding what is causing the absences, that's really how you get down to the root of dealing with attendance issues. Not just wagging our finger and saying, you got to come to school and here's an opportunity to make it up. So that's kind of the approach, is looking at the root of the issue and trying to address those things, connecting with supplemental services, and having all our staff work together towards helping that family, not just the student.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the SARB too, because that came up in some of our questions and obviously is another piece of this infrastructure and policy when it comes to attendance. Erin, anything that's come up in Elk Grove around community schools? And if not, that's all good too.
I don't have much different to say. I'll just echo what Omar said about breaking down the silos and having conversations across departments. And, I'm just going to add that the families are a critical partner in this work, in the community school work and in the attendance recovery work and in getting their kids to school. So including those folks in the conversation as well.
Thank you. This, some of this might come out in the future memos, but there are some questions about kind of the cost analysis itself. Like, has that been an ongoing effort? And how did you think about balancing kind of the cost with the return? Because some folks have done the math and the math's not mathin'. So just curious, did you start out with that? You did it halfway through, you're going to experiment. So yeah, just love to see how you guys both approach that or the thinking around that.
We have an agreed upon rate for our teachers. All teachers make the same hourly rate. So we use that as a baseline, like how much is it going to cost us to get these days of attendance? Also knowing that there are students who might attend an hour here, hour there, and never get to the full day. There are students who are going to bank some days and not be absent. So we're not going to recoup every hour that we invest in students. And we did a bit of statistical analysis on that, and we came up with a minimum ratio that we ask teachers to serve. So the maximum being 20, but we're asking our teachers to pull a minimum of 12 students. If they don't have 12 students, then we don't continue operating that program. If there's not enough interest in it and we're only getting 5, 6 students, then if they can't recruit more interest, then we ask them to cancel that. The other piece of it that we tried to do, I've already mentioned, we pushed into existing programs. So I already had teachers operating our intercession programs because we have year-round schools. So to get their 30-day ELO-P, we offer intercession monthly. If there's already teachers and there's already students, then you look at, okay, can we meet ratio? Can we align it to standards? Can we meet all of the things? So that's not an added cost in that case, because that is something we were already required to do under ELO-P. So wherever we could fit it in with what we were already investing funds in made sense to align this. So we have done that. And then, if pushing teachers into our ELO-P programs is an enhancement, then use of ELO-P dollars makes sense to do that. We're enhancing our program. We're providing an extra service within the program. And so if we recoup money on top of that, that's great. But, we would already be pushing in things that improve program quality. So again, just kind of aligning it with the goals we already had.
Thanks.
I think Erin kind of highlighted everything that's important about it. It's not like Saturday school where you have to find that sweet spot, right? Because you have to have a cafeteria person, a custodian, a teacher, an admin. So you have to account for those expenses and then how many students are going to make up so that you break even, and then which puts you into the black and to the positive. And the advantage we have with expanded learning programs is that, hey, we're offering activities for kids. And that's the goal. We want to offer activities for kids, and it's going to be a well blend between enrichment and academic. And so it's just going to be an opportunity to offer more for kids to select. And so the expenses are already accounted for when it comes to, like, you're going to offer these different activities. Each school site, for us, we have a budget that each school site has. And so they have to fit their activities within that budget. So whether you're going to offer, and we're going to offer more academic this quarter than last quarter, that just has to balance out throughout your budget. Um, so again, for us, we're very fortunate that we have funds to spend, and we have to spend it in the right way and be responsible and be fiscally responsible. Um, and we're doing to offer more activities. So we're looking again like equitable, but we are mindful of our fiscal management and balancing. We're not overspending, obviously. Um, we do have, like Aaron, we do have an agreement with our teacher or that work group of how many minimum students per class. So that is an agreement, whether it's enrichment or academic. So some things we try to remain consistent, so we're not interpreting different scenarios. So it's like this is the foundation of lead in the program, and for
Mhm.
attendance recoveries is there's just some minor shifts and changes.
Yeah. I mean, that came up time and time again is how do you build on existing strengths and infrastructure and then make sure it's aligned with the mission and vision of your program. So this one is something that has not come up in any of the conversations that I've had. And Omar, it might apply to you guys, but it might not because it's on high school. So Aaron, I just wonder, has are you guys serving high school students in attendance recovery? And then there was a question on um, that a credit recovery program happens after school as part of our after school. Is there a way to integrate AR with these kind of attendance recovery programs that aren't Saturday school, right?
Right.
So, um, yeah, I have a passion for high school, so anything.
So yeah, we are serving middle and high school students.
Okay.
Again, we started with pushing into existing programs. So like if our school has an assets program, looking at what is being offered and do these align with our, if you're going to after school for Spanish tutoring, is that direct instruction or is that drop-in kind of study hall? And then like looking at what was being offered. If it is direct instruction, are the students there for a full hour? Do you have less than 20 students? Like those conversations. And then, okay, where can these existing offerings perhaps meet the requirements? And then for our credit recovery program, we got a little bit creative. Credit recovery is not in our district is an independent study program. It's an online platform. I would not call that direct instruction. So we are not counting that towards attendance recovery. However, we are doing um, an orientation requirement. So there are 4 lessons that the students have to complete before they enroll in a credit recovery class. And the first one is kind of like goal setting and how did you get here? Why are you in credit recovery? What went wrong? How can we change this? And so it's got an SEL focus, but it has also been aligned with English standards. And then the next 3 are kind of looking at they're based on avid lessons and they're looking at study habits and time management and things like that. So they're direct instruction, they're provided in person, they're standards aligned. So every student is completing those 4 lessons prior to engaging in their online class. What we've learned is that additional accountability and building that relationship with the teacher, sitting through those 4 instructional day hours has created we're having better than we had in the past completion
Oh,
rates on our independent study. It's like they have to do the buy-in before they get started on the class. And so we're basically only recouping that one single day for them for their whole course, but it seems to be kind of have a double value now.
Omar, I know you don't have high school students, but I don't know if you guys do attendance recovery or if just like the infrastructure around attendance recovery has come up. I know there are different things again. Um,
We've flirted with the idea of Saturday school. And so this is just an idea, folks. This is not what, so as we're spitballing and in our group in conversation with community schools, we looked at what would be more engaging and really energizing for our community. So the Saturday school, although we don't have high school kids,
yeah.
it would be more of a family engagement where we do have the hours required, the 4 hours of instruction to make up a day. We would continue with other enrichment activities. We blend it in within the day and braid it so that it's not just like blocks. and at the same time to offer opportunities for parents to be engaged. So, for example, bringing in like a community clinic, our Health and Human Services agency that offers possible remaking of CAL cards, some parenting classes, some nutrition classes, all on the same campus, so that it becomes more of a family engagement, and supplemental services versus just a Saturday school. And obviously, we wouldn't use the name Saturday school because traditionally Saturday school has had like a punitive
Yep.
uh, meaning to it, right? So it would have been something else. So we're familiar with the name like Bridge, and there was an acronym that went behind all that, and bridging like the week to the weekend. But um, but really bringing in all our resources and connecting families. Again, that's an idea I am happy to share. If anybody can wants to move on that, um, I hope you do, and I hope that helps.
Thanks. Yeah. And a lot of these, yeah, start as ideas, and then we kind of put it through a blender, as your analogy. So Katie, Claudia, and Heather, I would just want to pause too and see if there's questions that I'm missing or something, since you guys have been more integrated. I see some other ones, but since this is the flexible time, you could come off mute if there's a burning question you see keep coming up.
This is Katie. I would just raise up the question about special education. Always a big question.
Yeah. So why don't I give you guys the question and then answer it as your district's been moving through it. So the question was, how do you accommodate students with special needs during a mixed grade group of attendance recovery? Since attendance recovery has to be facilitated outside of the instructional time, do we have to meet the accommodations during AR? That has a lot of layers, right? That is about compliance with inclusion, the accommodations, instructional time. So um, if that wasn't broken down enough, just I'm sure special education inclusion has come up as you planned and thought about serving all students, and making this inclusive for all students. So maybe just what you guys have been working through, and how you're accommodating the needs of all students.
We offer attendance recovery for students with moderate to severe disabilities by enlisting their teachers
Mhm.
to provide the instruction. And then, grade level standards may or may not be appropriate for all students, but it would be working towards IEP goals or skills that students need to access the IEP goals. So we have groups happening that are specific to those students. So if there's a self-contained classroom on campus, that teacher might offer it after school. One of the things to consider about that is the challenge with transportation, because a
Mhm.
lot of those students, it's not their home school and they are transportation dependent. For students who are in a general education setting during the day and maybe have paraeducator support or a health aide with them, we provide that same service if needed in the after school setting. And again, we're trying to push into our existing programs. So I would assume that then that's a student who's already participating in our after school program. So we've probably already determined what the supports and services are that they need. And then those would just go with them to the attendance recovery session.
Thank you. Omar, anything you want to add from Chula Vista's point of view?
Yeah, for us, it's funny. So I'll share like we've had some instructors that say, I need an aide. And so they're self-recruiting aides. But what we share with parents is that we try to be accommodating as much as possible. So we utilize an IEP if it's one-on-one that they may need or they're 504, then we try to accommodate as much as possible. So we do recruit aides that work during the core day to work in the after school time as well. And there is an agency that we partner with that the district has vetted through to utilize them during the core day that we also try to solicit for this. It's that's a little bit harder because most of them enroll to offer an entire school day versus just a short
Mhm.
amount of hours. But we utilize what the core day implements and has created for a student for them to be successful to accommodate them in the after school time.
Yeah, the ongoing coordination with the school day and the existing
Yeah.
supports makes a lot of sense. Um, so I'm going to zoom out again a little bit. Many existing after school programs don't have credentialed teacher. Though I will say with ELO-P, when we've surveyed folks, there's a lot more teachers in programs, but which is one of the requirements of attendance recovery. What are some of the strategies you guys have used to recruit credentialed teachers? And maybe this is for AR or maybe for summer school, because I think there's some of them are similar. And Aaron, I know you spoke to choice, but I don't know if there's any other kind of successful strategies either of one of you want to share with the group. To get more participation and buy-in from potential teachers?
So we open it to all teachers at the school, and we give them the flexibility on the days that they might want to work. One thing that we have done in partnership with our labor unions is our elementary teachers have prep right after school. And in some cases, if they're interested in working in the program, they have been able to, with administrator permission, flex their prep and they come in early in the morning to do their prep so that their contract day has been fulfilled by the time that school gets out so that they can go directly to the program. Or in other cases, perhaps the students go to snack and things first and the teacher does their prep and then the teacher joins later. So it just depends on the school site and the structure of the after school program, but we've tried to make it as convenient as possible for them to be able to stay on campus and do their hours there.
Reducing friction always helps. Omar, anything you want to add of what you guys have noticed when recruiting teachers into AR or again, just summer as
Yeah.
well?
Just mainly, again, it's voluntary, so they accept the hours. But we do have with their classes or working groups, again, we have the structure of being able to offer activities, and they're all considered instructors, um, and we pay them different. So because we need somebody with the credential, and recognizing that we offer them a higher hourly rate to offer the activity. Um, so that's our main thing. It's offering these opportunities. Erin highlighted earlier that she has some curriculum already set. We have some of that. So again, we have some resources that if a teacher is interested but does not know which way to sway, we have some resources for them to jump in as well. But the main thing is that an enrichment instructor gets paid a different rate than
Mhm.
a credentialed instructor to lead that activity. That's probably the biggest difference. But again, we lean towards our strengths. We have a system that works for our after school program. We utilize that. And so that's been the main opportunity to recruit teachers.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I'm going to start to wrap us up. And what I want to say is first, Omar and Aaron, again, hope there's still over 110 folks on the call listening in. That hasn't happened to me on any webinar ever. So hopefully we can take your show on the road. And then to all the participants who asked really nuanced, thoughtful questions, we're going to take these all back, group them. I'm not saying we can answer all of them, but I know Can and us are committed to kind of ongoing FAQs, partnerships with CDE. So just know that this document is a living document and we are committed to continuing to work through attendance recovery. So, what you can expect from us is a recording of this, all the resources that Omar and Aaron, all the models, all the templates that were mentioned as well, some summaries of what we learned and heard today, and then next steps on some of these questions and additional resources. So, again, thank you for your time. And we're excited to be all working on this together and learning together. So have a great